AirTag's safety feature was linked to fatal crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. As Hurricane Dorian continues to make its way toward the southeast coast, we'll have a live report from West Palm Beach with how Florida is hunkering down. And a clash at a cookout this weekend in Indiana. We'll show you how those protesters stood up against hate in their neighborhood. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on GMC Weekend. I'm Simon Williams. Now we're going to check in with meteorologist Kevin Jacobs.
Well, good morning. Let's take a look right now at the latest from Dorian. I want to show you what's happening with the latest stats this morning. The storm has upgraded to a Category 5 storm. As the graphics continue to load, you'll see that the eye of the storm is really carved out there as it's making a slow approach to the Bahamas this morning. Take a look at that. Very impressive, but certainly very deadly storm as it's going to produce a lot of damage there. So certainly our hearts are going out to anyone who is in the path of the eye of this storm as it's making that slow approach. It's really just going to hang off the coast of Florida over the next couple of days before it makes a shift towards the north. And notice that pressure has dropped as well. That storm is really wrapped up at about 927 millibars there. Here at home, the storm is far from us, but it's certainly not far out of our minds as we are thinking about possible impacts here at home. A gorgeous view coming in from our sky cam at the Marsh Wall. Gorgeous blue skies out there, but you can see the waters are certainly up high today. The high tide will cause a little bit of overflow on some of those streets and roads right there oceanfront. No additional rainfall at this time. 9:31. We're watching some showers just off the coast there. Just be careful out there. We have some issues out there on the waterways this morning. You want to be careful. You want to take the boat out there. We'll have temperatures coming in at 82 this afternoon for highs and 88 across the PD. A few showers and storms expected today. I'll have more in your forecast, and of course I'll go through those possible scenarios on what impacts we could face here at home.
Well, Hurricane Dorian is remaining now a Category 5 hurricane bearing down on the Bahamas. Its path is still unpredictable, but the outlook for Florida is slightly improved. Now, with Georgia and the Carolinas in its path, the entire eastern seaboard is bracing for impact. ABC's Serena Marshall is in Daytona Beach with more.
Hurricane Dorian closing in on the Bahamas this morning. With sustained winds of 150 miles per hour, the island's expected to see life-threatening storm surge, extreme rainfall, and hurricane-force winds beginning this afternoon and continuing into the evening hours. The Prime Minister hoping residents heeded his warning.
Those who refuse to evacuate place themselves in great danger from this very, very powerful and potentially life-threatening hurricane.
The slow-moving storm continuing to strengthen. Electric trucks from more than 30 states and Canada pre-positioned in Daytona Beach, ready to respond, coordinating with the federal government. President Trump receiving a briefing at Camp David. As Dorian continues towards Florida, a tropical storm watch issued along portions of the coast.
Stay tuned. Keep your preparations in place. It's still going to be a nasty day on Tuesday and Wednesday.
And while no longer a resident of the Sunshine State bracing for a direct hit, their neighbors to the north could see a significant amount of rainfall, with it brushing up along the east coast as a likely Category 2, with residents from Georgia to the Carolinas being warned of significant rainfall.
We want to ensure that there's no lost lives or casualties as a part of this storm or any storm coming in. So when an evacuation isn't announced and you're in an evacuation zone, it would be very prudent to leave.
Now, if you are planning on hitting the beach this holiday weekend, we would like you to be as safe as you can as Hurricane Dorian gets closer to Myrtle Beach. Now, this storm actually increases your chances of running into a rip current in the ocean. One officer with Myrtle Beach Fire Department says if you get caught in one, break the grip of the rip. The officer says you should also keep an eye out for the clarity of the water because dirty or milky water or a column of sand by the water are a sign that a rip current is coming. Well, yesterday was International Overdose Awareness Day, and our state is no stranger to the problem of addiction. In 2017, there were nearly 800 opioid overdose deaths in South Carolina. Yesterday, local recovery organizations gathered in Chapin Park in Myrtle Beach to provide encouragement as well as resources to those struggling with addiction. And the event's message was to just not be ashamed of who you are.
They're not bad people. These people that have addiction, they're some of the kindest hearted people you could ever meet in your life. But they get caught up in this addiction, and it just takes their soul.
Now, advocates at the event said the stigma surrounding addiction is what prevents many from seeking help. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, just head on over to WPDE.com for more information on what recovery resources are available right here along the Grand Strand. Taking a look around the nation now, police say at least 5 people are dead and 21 others are injured after a traffic stop went wrong. 3 of those injured victims are police officers. Investigators say the shooting started after a routine traffic stop, but instead of stopping, the gunman pointed a rifle at a Texas trooper, fired several shots, and then fled. The terror continued as he randomly shot at people and then carjacked a U.S. Postal Service car. Odessa police confirmed there was only 1 gunman after some people were concerned there were 2 shooters. Now, several people were injured and dozens others had to be evaluated after a barrier collapsed at Bumbershoot last night. Seattle Fire Department officials say there were no critical patients. However, 4 people had to be transported to the hospital. Officials say there was a steel barricade failure that resulted in the injuries. Pizza, protest signs, and angry chants. That was the scene when protesters showed up at a park in Madison, Indiana, to stop a KKK group from holding its annual picnic there. Chad Mills from our CNN affiliate in Louisville, Kentucky, has the details.
Standing up for the people. You're sticking up for the minority, and I'm sticking up for the superiority.
It's a confrontation that only lasted about 10 minutes.
You don't love me, you're going to go to.
In it, Ku Klux Klan members from Indiana and Kentucky were turned away from a park in Madison.
The honorable sacred knights of the KKK showed up here at the park and were chased out within minutes because hate has no place here in Madison, Indiana.
Mike Gams, a self-described anti-fascist dressed up like Spider-Man, was just one of dozens who showed up early to foil the KKK's plan.
If they do this event again, I bet Spider-Man and his amazing friends will be here again.
The Klan had hoped to hold an annual cookout at this park, but it was over before it ever really began, with counter-protesters taking over the park first. Just after 1:30, a small motorcade of KKK members first arrived. After revving their engines past the counter-protesters, about 10 Klan members parked at an adjacent pavilion with 2 carry-out pizzas in hand.
We're not here to feed you.
Law enforcement was there to keep the peace as counter-protesters outnumbered the KKK.
You have a job? Where do you work?
Yeah, I work for your mom.
After a war of words, the KKK left.
Well, we're hoping this might have been a good reminder that, guess what? They're losing steam.
Counter-protesters like Mary Childress believes when the KKK left, hate lost the battle. And Evelyn Wheeler and members of other churches showed up to make sure to clean the park in more ways than one.
To bless the area for ordinary life, take away the hate, take away the hostility, take away the anger, take away.
Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center says the Ku Klux Klan is America's oldest and most notorious hate group. Well, the lawyers in the historic Flores settlement case are looking to fight regulation that would end the decades-old agreement. Friday, they filed a brief seeking to stop the White House from getting rid of the legal limit for holding migrant children. As it stands now, the government must release children in detention after 20 days. Last week, the Trump administration announced plans to get rid of the rule. They argue the rule gets in the way of immigration enforcement. Now, New York's police commissioner says he will not resign despite being pressured to do so. The Police Benevolent Association is calling on the commissioner to step down, but he refuses to hand in his resignation. The police union approved 2 solutions of no confidence in the commissioner and Mayor Bill de Blasio. They are unhappy about the recent firing of Officer Daniel Panatello. Panatello was found guilty in a disciplinary trial of using a chokehold during the arrest of Eric Garner in 2014. O'Neill says he stands by his decision to fire Panatello. Well, in your world news, Omar al-Bashir, the disposed former president of Sudan, was denied bail yesterday in his corruption trial. Bashir, who was ousted in a military group in April following months of popular uprising, is facing several charges, including corruption and illegal possession of foreign currency. Stop the Coup protests are happening in the streets of London and across England. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to turn out to demonstrate against Boris Johnson's move to suspend Parliament for 5 weeks in hopes of pushing through his Brexit plan. Atlanta, Georgia has been taken over this weekend by geek culture. We'll take a look at what's inside DragCon this Labor Day weekend.